Ahoy! And welcome to Manning Overboard, Happy Hour with Hotcakes and the Captain, a show about the good and liquid life,
where we talk about bars, bartending, and booze.
She's Hotcakes.
And he's the Captain.
Thanks for coming aboard. Now, let's go overboard. Ahoy there again, and welcome to Manning Overboard, Happy Hour with Hotcakes and the Captain. I am the Captain, Rich Manning, and with me as always is my lovely wife, Heather Hotcakes.
Hi.
So, Hotcakes, we got some tall glasses here. What are we drinking tonight?
Yeah, well, I thought in honor of our guest today, and we're recording not on our regular Wednesday, we're recording on our Monday, when we also don't usually imbibe, that we would have some NA cocktails. So, for you are drinking our favorite NA spirit, which happens to be Drink the Pathfinder. So you're having a Pathfinder and 7-Up today.
That's a lovely drink. Thank you for bringing the Pathfinder in my glass.
Always. Thank you.
And what you got?
And for me, I decided to make myself a mango michelada.
Ooh,
yes,
nice.
In honor, inspired kind of by the NA michelada that they have at Super Bueno.
Oh,
so,
that's a good call. Super Bueno makes damn fine, delicious NA drinks.
They do, indeed. And, before we drink, why don't we introduce our guest and find out what he's drinking today?
I think that's a great idea. So today our guest is Nick Hogan, the mastermind behind the Jacksonville-based bar-themed merchant online meme company Mover and Shaker. Now, Nick's brands, apparel, barware, and other accessories have developed a cult following among the industry and drinks enthusiasts as well. And you can tell that we're fans because we're rocking some of that merch today. Yeah, this is Nick's doing. So thank you, Nick. Now, and if you're into cocktails and have a social media account, you've probably seen his hilarious memes, which routinely take the starch out of the industry. And gets rid of all the pretense that sometimes gets stuck in the cocktail scene. So Nick's also a former bartender and a brand ambassador, so he's got the pedigree and the knowledge to poke fun at the industry that we all love. So Nick, welcome aboard to Manning Overboard. What are you drinking, sir?
Thank you. Yeah, can you guys hear me? Okay, we're all good.
Oh yeah, you're great.
Sweet. Yeah. So I am at a different location than I thought I'd be, but we're going to, metaphorically drink one of my favorite Pathfinder drinks, which would be a Jungle Bird. So I just like to make it with Pathfinder, pineapple, little Demerara, and some citrus, and you're good to go. It's delicious.
That's fantastic, and that's great. And I think I'm glad that you said that. You would use Pathfinder with pineapple because I think because Pathfinder is an Amaro-esque non-alc spirit, people will think, oh, what do I do with it? Well, yeah, bring up some tropical notes in there, play with that because that'll work really well with their hemp and root formula. So
sounds like a delicious drink. So
yeah,
cheers
Cheers,
for having you on the show, Nick. Indeed.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here.
Well,
happy to have you.
We are so happy to have you on the show. We have had the opportunity to cross paths multiple times in the real life, in the real world. But obviously, we first came into contact, as most of the people in the drinks community come into contact with you, through Mover and Shaker. You are the creator. You are the mind behind Mover and Shaker. So what was your inspiration? Why did you go down that path? What inspired you to create Mover and Shaker?
Yeah, so I think, I started back in 2017. I kind of fell into the bar side in around maybe 2013, 2014. Got my bearings, and I think a lot of younger bartenders kind of coming up trying to navigate the industry. I was trying to differentiate myself and make a name for myself. And, like everybody else, I kind of did the competition scene and, just figuring out ways to network that were kind of like different or, I don't know, maybe the most efficient at the time, which was Instagram was kind of maybe not in its infancy, but it was like you could make a lot of impact on Instagram at the time in a big way. So kind of saw, actually, I guess I can take it a step further. One of my coworkers at my bar, I came up at Oddbirds in St. Augustine, Florida, was Josue Romero, who did the Garnish Guy, and he
Okay.
hugely popular. He moved to LA and had a really good career there as well. Unfortunately, since passed away, but he started his Instagram and was doing like really insane garnishes and doing some really cool like boundary pushing things at the time back in like maybe 2015, 2016. And I came up bartending with him, and I wanted to do something a little bit different. And yeah, it was kind of funny because people associate mover and shaker with the memes, but really I started doing the merch first.
Oh,
And
really?
so I was
Okay.
yeah, so I was kind of coming up with these ideas. I kind of came up in the skateboarding world, so a lot of it was very like DIY and making parodies of things and just trying to like connect the dots of culture with cocktails and music and the things that I grew up with. And yeah, so started Mover and Shaker kind of as a way to get my name out there in the beginning, which is kind of funny to think about because now, Mover and Shaker has eclipsed me and is kind of its own entity,
Sure.
which is really cool. But yeah, so started Mover and Shaker around then, and that's when I also started kind of in the brand world as well. I shortly, kind of hand in hand, actually got a job with Angels Envy and worked for Bacardi up until March of last year. So
Okay.
yeah, my journey all kind of just like tied really, really close, one thing into the next. And yeah, just took everything really seriously kind of from the beginning. And yeah, just been like this crazy whirlwind path and met a lot of amazing people like yourself. And I'm actually wearing a highball shirt because I think that's the last time that we saw each other
That is
is Arizona
correct.
about a
Yeah.
month ago.
Yeah, down in
But
Arizona.
yeah,
And
I
that
thought it
was a
was very
great time.
fitting. Yeah, it was that was my first time, and yeah, I loved it. I think I'll probably go back every year if I can.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, just seeing you in highball every night with your merch and just hanging out, and then obviously getting behind the stick the last night. It was great. It just it feels like a natural fit for you and Mover and Shaker to be there.
Yeah.
Now, you said obviously the brand has grown, has kind of outpaced your name. Are you at the point of your career right now when you say that younger bartenders are surprised by your prior industry work? How many people know that you were a brand ambassador or a bartender or anything like that?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So, I kind of went from bartending to brand work. And, when you're working for a brand, you're kind of on a non compete. You can't do pop ups and stuff with other brands, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I could work a little bit with the Bacardi portfolio, which was nice. But I wasn't seen behind the stick, so to say, as much. And as you guys know, I also do photography, so I do a lot
Yeah.
of like Camp Luck, a lot of Lush Life stuff. So Portland Cocktail Week, Bartenders Weekend. I have a camera in my hand, so it was kind of funny. I was at Camp Runamuck, and someone said like, do you even bartend? Or like, oh, you bartend? Surprise! And I was like, wow, like I'm so far removed at this point that people don't like they know I do mover and shaker, but they don't know I bartend, which I was like, wow, I really have to like get into a space where people see me behind the bar. So if you've seen me in the last year, I've been really going really, really hard on guest shifts and bringing back guest shifts, because I wanted people to see me behind the bar making drinks. And I think that's important. And I think it's also, I love doing it. So I think it's a lot of
Okay.
fun. I think it's a great way for me to connect with people and travel. And I think it's really important for our culture because I think before COVID, I think you saw tons of pop ups, I think they're really important for networking, people to go to other people's bars, share ideas. I think is almost like this like interconnected internet type situation. But during COVID and after COVID, it really like kind of cut it off. And I think there was like this big gap in this like culture of doing that. So I wanted to. I'm not saying I brought it back single handedly, but I wanted to
Right.
do my part of traveling and sharing these pop up things and bringing mover and shaker and the culture of the memes and just the camaraderie of it to in person events.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. I'm glad that you are getting yourself back behind the stick, because it's true. A lot of people just kind of assumed you were just the meme guy coming out of COVID, because that's where we all kind of knew you from. Your merchandise is obviously really well known. I mean, this was probably the rainbow shirt is probably the reason why I know you, is because Ramos was my favorite drink, and when I saw this shirt, it's iconic. Obviously, the logo is incredibly iconic. How difficult is it to do the riffs on the existing logos and such? Like, this is obviously a riff on the Ramones shirt.
This is the Judas Priest Screaming for Vengeance album cover. This is the old fashioned. You'll notice the details too. So I don't know if you can see it, but the bird has an old fashioned in its talons, which I think is a brilliant touch.
This is, of course, for our viewers, not for Nick, because obviously he designed it.
Yes.
But so, like, how difficult is it to recreate things and stay away from the legalities of everything? How walking that fine line?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go a little bit like into kind of my mindset on everything a little bit, and then kind of, I guess, maybe answer your question a little more as well.
Sure.
But I think kind of in the beginning, it was a little more like, it was a little bit easier just to do like parodies, because I think, no one knew it. Like Mover and Shaker was just something I made up, it didn't have a brand name in the beginning. So it was like, how do I make products that people want? And that's kind of to equate things that are like household items, or things that people can already like, they have an attachment to, but kind of spin it. And I like how you said a riff on it, which is funny because we're tying it into cocktails.
Right.
So you're almost, it's also like, people are going to want to drink your cocktail if you can equate it to an old fashioned, maybe it's your take on it. So it's kind of a little bit like that. It was like having that familiarity was like helpful in selling something. And then, so like in the beginning, a lot of stuff was these parodies of just existing, like, bands, or we did like the Daiquiri Queen shirt, which was just the Dairy Queen kind of flipped into a lime. And then, the text was changed. So a lot of it was kind of like these easy little flips that we were just having fun with. And then, I really wanted to move into the original stuff too. So we started, I work with different artists, and I'm more of like a creative director role within the design aspect, where I'll come up with the concepts, and I have a ton of different artist friends that I'll work with to kind of bring those to life. So I'll sketch them out, or like build out kind of like a layout, and relay that to my designer. So then it moved into more of the original art. And then I kind of just went back and forth. I was like, hey, I kind of miss like some of the parody stuff is kind of fun. And I really wanted like, and I think it kind of went hand in hand with how big the Instagram got too, where I was realizing like, this started as like very hyper-focused craft cocktail memes. And then, it kind of moved into more just like a lot of service industry stuff, whereas I still will post the hyper-focused memes because I think they're funny.
Mm-hmm.
But to kind of broaden my demographic and my followers, I kind of did more stuff that was just all-encompassing. And then in return, I kind of moved into more just like things that I thought were cool within our industry, and pop culture stuff that I grew up with too, which has led to a lot of like really cool collabs and official things. But to answer your ultimate question, how do you kind of walk that line of, parody versus, getting in trouble?
Sure.
It was kind of more ask for forgiveness and just kind of,
nice.
kind of just work with it. In the beginning, we were so small that, no one was really coming after us. And then we got a little notoriety, and I've definitely been knocked a couple times, but it's kind of funny. Sometimes the people like what you're doing, and they're like, hey, like, let's work together. So I've definitely got, my hand slap, my wrist slap, and I've got a lot of opportunities out of it. So, it's kind of just taking that leap of faith and hoping people buy into your idea. And, I've been really fortunate. I think really early on, I had some really cool supporters I always like to shout out Souther Teague. I think he was either the first or the second person that hit me up for custom pins. So
Okay.
Nice.
I have a special place in my heart for Amore Margot. Even before that, I love that bar, and he's always been a really good friend. And yeah, it's been really cool. At this point, I've worked with, I think, like over 500 or 600 different brands on custom
Wow.
merch, and we're kind of built that household name within the industry on merch, and hopefully the creative aspect as well.
Very cool. Now, you said you got your wrist slapped with some of the merch. Have you ever gotten like pushback on some of your memes? Like you go after somebody and somebody will just message you privately, go, "Okay, dude, that's not cool."
Yeah, definitely. I think that's kind of evolved over time too. I think kind of in the earlier stages, I guess I'll give you guys. I don't think I've ever really talked about this, but during COVID, kind of had like a lot more. I think there were a lot more meme pages popping up, and you had a lot of
Mhm.
smaller ones. We were probably the bigger one, but there were a lot of like kind of meme pages that beefed and like made memes about each other. Some were
Sure.
more malicious than
Yeah.
others. I'm not going to name any names, but we also had like a couple group chats, which were kind of funny. So Good Cocktails, he's a friend of mine in real life, but we had a chat going, which was a lot of fun. It was a little toxic, but we were coming up with a lot of funny ideas kind of in the background.
Okay.
And yeah, so I don't know. The meme culture has been really fun. It's funny to kind of work with these people in the background and kind of see where we can kind of push like influence in the cocktail world. Yeah, I don't want to give away like too much insider stuff,
Sure.
but
No,
Yeah, of course
absolutely.
not, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
going from that, I've always, being kind of a bigger page, I've always really believed in supporting the smaller pages that I think kind of align their values with me. And my values, I would say, are stay true to like our demographic, which are the working bartenders and the more craft side. I've always been on that side, so I gravitate towards that.
Okay.
So I always I've always tried to repost and share like smaller pages that I think are really funny. Do collabs once they release like that collab feature. I love doing collabs. I think it's really important to bring focus to the smaller pages or even the bigger pages that are kind of doing something similar. And it's also like a cool way to collab with people that are not even focused on cocktails. So it's like something that I think is funny. Just like, for example, there's a page called Wieners and Losers, and they just do hot dog content. And, I reached out to them. I was like, I think it'd be funny just to do a collab because hot dogs are like, I don't know, had this great push in the last year, I feel like,
Oh.
especially
my
in the
gosh.
cocktail world.
Yeah, you can't get away from having a hot dog in a bar right
Yeah,
now.
long live the Glizzly at Yacht Club.
Yeah, long
Yeah.
live the glizzy for sure.
Yeah, the Glizzy, yeah.
Yeah.
They added extra
So-
dough there.
You did.
Yeah.
You did. The
That's what-
glizzy. The
We can edit
glizzy.
it close, right? Glizzy.
The glizzy.
Don't tell me.
The glizzy.
Don't tell Mary McLean.
Very well.
Yeah, sorry. We love you guys. Sorry.
So speaking of bartending, going back to having your bones in craft, what is your bartending roots? Where did you start bartending?
Yeah, so I kind of went to school for nothing related to hospitality. I went to school for finance.
As one
I
does.
didn't really know what I wanted to be. I just grew up thinking I was going to do what my dad did. I feel like a lot of people probably do that.
Sure.
And then
Yeah.
I got a real job like right out of college, and I was like, man, this sucks. So ended up traveling quite a bit and kind of doing things that I loved. I drove some ski boats at a summer camp in New Hampshire and met a guy that did ski patrol in Colorado. So I worked out there for a little while during the winters and just kind of flip flopped summer and winters. And then ended up like meeting a girl back home in Florida one summer and ended up moving back to this very like tourist town, St. Augustine, which is a little bit south of my hometown.
Okay.
And I was like, man, I got to get a real job again. And, but the commute was like an hour. And I was like, man, I really don't want to do that. So this was like during the craft beer boom, like, mid 2010s or whatever.
Okay.
And I was like super into beer at the time. So I was like, man, maybe I could like do sales and work as a distributor, but I knew nothing about it and I didn't know anybody in this city. So I was like, okay, I'll get my foot in the door by working at a restaurant, which I hadn't worked at a restaurant since I was like in my teens.
Sure.
But just went out and applied to a few jobs, got a bar backing job, knew nothing about like how bars operated. I just knew a ton about beer. So I was just moving kegs all day. And
Sure.
I really loved it because I love beer. And then I kind of just started like, I feel like everybody kind of has the same progression. You work at a bar and then you're like, well, I got to go visit other bars because I got to meet other bar people.
Sure.
And so I started doing that. And that's kind of when I discovered cocktails. And I met this girl, Hannah, who worked at this new cocktail bar. And she kind of saw like my work ethic, I think. And she was like, I really want you to come work for me and be my bar back. And they were like very craft cocktail focused versus like a very beer centric spot I was currently working at. So I went and worked over there with her. And yeah, that's when I discovered like the history of spirits. I took bar smarts.
Okay.
I was reading all the books that had like come out, the PDT book, Death and Co. kind of came up in that generation. So a lot of my like memes now, you'll see why I'm making memes about Death and Co. and PDT and kind of like those famous New York bars at the time, because that's when I came up and came up kind of in that like buttoned up mixology generation.
Yeah.
So like every meme I make is like kind of poking fun of myself and the bartenders that like came up in that era. But yeah, so back to your question. Yeah, I came up like this bar called Oddbirds in St. Augustine. It was like very industry heavy, really small cocktail bar, a lot of bespoke cocktails. Like I loved it. That generation was just like this golden era of years of just making cocktails and having fun. They had a really awesome guest shift program every Monday night. They would have bartenders from all over the country come in and
Fun.
yeah, to me that was like the norm, was like traveling and meeting people and having these guest bartenders. So, I came out of that situation. I was like, well, I want to go travel and I want to go do these things and I want to network and meet people and travel across the country and learn about what other people are doing. I think that's, very important to spread those ideas.
Sure.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Totally. Now, you're sober, a bartender, I guess, and stuff like that. And so, as someone who's sober, do you find it a little challenging to poke fun at current industry trends, or because you do so much traveling, different pop-ups, different collaborations, you still manage to keep a pulse on exactly what's happening at this moment in the biz?
Yeah, I don't think sobriety has really affected that so much because I think, I'm always, for me, like I'm still very like in the know and in the scene. I'm not too far removed. Yeah, I don't think it's really affect the memes at all. I don't know. Yeah, I just stay like up to date on like kind of what's happening, looking at Punch, and I'm friends with like so many bartenders that my Instagram feed is just filled with stuff all the time. And that's like my main information is just Instagram and kind of like perusing Punch and different publications. So yeah, I don't think it's affected me too much, but yeah, I don't know.
And that makes sense because if you're scrolling the different publications, you'll know that there's a lot of rich content to poke fun at. You mentioned Punch, and the first thing I thought of was Stoli Blueberry, and the whole Stoli Blueberry thing that went down last year. And I mean those jokes kind of write themselves, which is kind of fun. Yeah, so that makes total sense.
Do you have a favorite? Not a favorite meme, because you can't have a favorite meme. I'm sure there are, but do you have like is there one or two where people are like, oh my gosh, you're the mover shaker guy, I love this one? Is there one that is like a potential that comes up more often than any others?
Oh my gosh.
Or does it just depend on the time and day? Like,
I feel like I'm cranking out like so much content. Sometimes people like reference something and I'm like, man, I forgot I made that almost, which is kind of funny.
Okay.
It's like,
Sure.
It's like one of the 80s bands that they like forget they wrote a whole album or something, like the Rolling Stones or something.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think if I can like really connect something that's very, very nerdy in bartending with like popular culture and people like get a kick out of it, then I think I did my job. And It like I've been doing this for what, I guess 5 years now, doing the
Mhm.
memes. So it's like it's a little bit of like feel like Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill. Like it gets harder and harder every day
Sure.
because
Sure,
it's
sure.
there's
Yep.
only so many jokes you can possibly make, but
Yeah.
that makes the jokes better because I have to like dig deeper and deeper. But a lot of it is just like kind of what's happening at the time, like White Lotus, like season finale is here. So like, how can I equate White Lotus to the
Yeah.
cocktail scene? Whatever it is, there's always going to be something, and there's always something we can kind of poke fun of. And to tie it back to Punch, like honestly, Punch is my go-to if I'm like doing R&D or just like looking up trends. Like I think they do a great job, but at the same time, like I'm with you. Like some of the stuff they post is like, this is a meme in and of itself. Like where are they getting? But,
It's
but
like the
that's what makes it
onion.
fun.
Yeah.
Like we're all here because we love cocktails, and if I poke fun of it, that just means that it's funny, and I don't know, it's topical. So it's not. I'm never like attacking something, and this kind of ties back into what you said earlier as well. Like I'm never attacking anything. It's more just like bringing light to something or starting a conversation around something so that bartenders can like kind of air it out. Like
Yeah.
how do you feel about this ingredient?
Yeah. Yeah. I do. I will tell you, I still have it. I have it in my saves, and I pull it out every now and again. The crash test dummies. Yeah.
The when we're drinking with an industry professional or drinking
Yeah.
with your bartender friend.
You ready to
Yeah.
die? Have you ever what do you remember where walking into an event space and seeing a bunch of people wearing your merch and just being like, I did this? Has there ever, do you remember that moment where you walked in and you were like, yeah, okay. Having a
I
sense of
mean,
pride.
yeah, I still feel that way. If I see a shirt like in the wild, it's really cool. I think this answer is probably going to be more fun, but like my dad, for me, like starting the company was always like my parents didn't get it at first. You know what I mean? They were
Sure.
like, or they didn't really get the bartending thing at first,
Sure.
but they loved me and they supported me. And then, starting your own company was always like, it's a struggle in the beginning to make money and figure it out. And then, explaining it to them. And then it comes to the point where like the company is like, I do pretty well now. So like my parents understand that, but like getting to the point where my dad was like proud of it, and he would go to bars and like talk to the bartender, and like he would just be so proud whenever they were like knew what mover and shaker was, or like wearing a piece of merch or wearing a pin. There's just like a point where like he would be like, oh, this bartender knows you, or like knows the brand, and like send me pictures. And it's just funny because he'd be like, oh yeah, I told this guy like you would send him like a rug or something. I'm just like, okay, thanks, man. Or like a shirt or something. Well, yeah, I don't mind doing that, but it's just kind of funny where he became like the name dropper, but not because he was trying to get clout, just because he was like very, very proud of me.
Super proud.
Yeah.
It was really cool. And I definitely had like a lot of other friends that, like I remember my friend was in London, and this is like maybe a year or two in, and he sent me like a photo of the bartender wearing some pins, and I was like, man, that's pretty cool. Like this dude,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
the Holland is, rocking our stuff. So, I mean, I take like every person supporting is amazing, because I think what I've tried to build is a community thing. Like Mover and Shaker isn't me. It's like the whole industry submitting their drink tickets. Like I try to share like everybody's story as much as I can without like flooding it. But it kind of just shows what's happening right now.
Sure.
It's like a direct look into the service ticket printer almost.
And honestly, Nick, I mean, your stuff is the thing that makes your stuff great. Your memes great is, yeah, they're industry centric, but if anybody cares about, posting up at a bar and drinking and having a conversation with the bartender, they're going to get that humor too. They don't necessarily need to be bartenders or have worked in the industry to understand those jokes. And I think that's a testimony to how you see the industry and how you build community through your merch, through your memes, because that community is not just for the bars; it's for the customers that also appreciate what the bartenders are doing, and that's a big, big thing.
Yeah. So
Yeah, So, when I first got into bartending, like the coolest thing that could happen is getting like a Fernet coin, or like the Fernet
Right.
bike was big at the time. And just that feeling of like being in the know of like appreciating Fernet was like, that was like, you're in that crowd. So it was like, how can I take that feeling and make it like a little more accessible, but also still like, you kind of, if you know type thing. And I was just taking like the jokes that we get every day, like the things we say and the things that happen in making kind of a brand out of it. That was kind of like my mindset in the beginning, was like democratizing that feeling, I guess, so to say.
Okay.
And I think you've done one heck of a job.
I really think so. And that leads me to another question. Where do you feel Mover and Shaker's place is in the industry? And do you see that place changing as Mover and Shaker, the brand, continues to evolve and grow? And obviously, there's, like you mentioned earlier, there's a few other people that are doing memes online as well. How do you
Mhm.
feel where you are? Or if you're influential, if you're like and equal to some of the bars in a different way that you poke fun of. Where is your place?
Man, that's a really good question. I think it's kind of like what do I want to do, and where do I see myself in that space?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think like, and it's also obviously ties a little bit into a business side. And for me, like I really don't like authority, and I don't like
Yeah.
ever want to, and I don't ever really want people telling me what to do. So I keep like the business and operation side very, very minimal. Like it's just me, and I have like one person that helps me ship, and like all the content is me as well. So I can kind of have a say in like what I post. But with that being said, it kind of limits me in the terms of like my bandwidth on what I can and can't do as far as like content. And like, I mean, I would love to have like an arm of like publications. I just don't have that bandwidth
Yeah.
unless I were to like outsource that and work with other people, which could be a thing at some point. Um, but I think, this kind of goes back into the in-person events that I'm doing, and why I started doing those once I left Angels Envy and I was able to, work without a non-compete. And, back in, I think like September, October last year, I started doing the in-person events, and I was kind of just doing them like self-funding them, and kind of breaking even on them just to like get out in the market and um, just be like in different bars in different cities, just to like meet people and show them that like Mover and Shaker is a real person. And
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
share cocktails with people was kind of the thing, kind of just like an organic approach. But like, obviously that was also to hopefully attract like brands that want to do bigger campaigns. So this year I do have like some bigger things on the horizon, which is really cool. And hopefully, every year that grows, and it grows into like doing bigger scale tails events. So I think it ultimately goes into doing in-person events. But as you guys know, that just means like you need brands that have money to kind of support those ideas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But they have to like understand your vision, and my vision is always going to align with like, it has to be authentic and true to bartending and the bartenders, and support actual bartender things that bartenders are interested in. Because I feel like a lot of brands want to push their product without thinking about, is this actually something that bartenders care about? And understand like everybody's got their business needs at the end of the day, so that's totally fine. But I just want people that support bartenders, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally.
And that absolutely makes perfect sense. And I think that's the perfect way to end this interview. I mean, I look forward to. I'm really hoping. But before we do, I mean, we're not going to end the interview because we do have questions. But are you hoping to do another Tails event this year?
Yeah, so I do have some stuff in the works. I'm not sure I can kind of talk about it fully yet. Yeah, so as you guys know, I do all the Tails merch every year, so I'm kind of operating that. I think it's Monday through Thursday. And then last year I did like a tail send off with Heaven Hill.
Yeah.
We had a really good time. I think this year we're doing something a little bit different with them, and I'll have some details shortly. Yeah, I'm like always open to doing something. And I think it's just kind of just depends like how I feel at the time, like what is going to be cool and what makes sense and what brand I want to work with. It's
Sure.
never like who has the biggest purse or anything. It's just like who's doing cool stuff. Like I would love to just, I guess, manifest it, like do something with like the Schmucks or like Eric Castro. Like I don't know,
Okay.
find something cool,
Okay.
or even like support some smaller bartenders that have a really cool concept and like loop them into the mover and shaker name. I think it would be really cool. Another thing I'll just manifest that I like just thought of the other day.
Uh-huh.
I think I'm like really into skateboarding, and I know Tony Hawk is about to re-release Tony Hawk 3 and 4, but I would love to do a Tony Hawk pop-up based off
Sure.
his like video games would be really fun,
Sure.
and tie in like a skate shop. I don't know. I think that'd be really cool.
You know, come out to
So
California.
Yeah.
You, California, Eric Castro. You know, we'll just
All
we'll
the
just keep,
elements
we'll just
are
keep
right
wrapping it
there.
all together
Yeah.
for you. How's
Yeah.
that sound?
I mean, I see you guys at every like cool event, and I know you guys get it. Like you're kind of in the know, you know everybody in the scene, and it's like everybody kind of has to support everybody because like no one has this like unlimited purse of money to just do whatever they want. So we got to like build each other up and kind of do a lot of collab things and just all build each other up and I don't know, just keep doing cool shit for bartenders because there was like the gap of COVID. I feel like really left this gap of like knowledge with like the younger generation, and a lot of those younger kids came up really quick without. It doesn't matter about putting in the work, but I think they miss kind of like this whole era of like reading the cocktail books and like getting the things that came before them. And I don't know. I think we just got to like make sure there's still that culture there and there's still people doing like really cool stuff. Yeah. 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 Thanks. Yeah. I think the memes like play one part. And I think, I mean, you've seen it like memes. When I log into Instagram, it's almost just like exclusively memes or reels now. It's like you don't see your friends anymore, really, except they post stories. So it's like memes are kind of the way you get your information now. And then, I'll be like, holy crap, like this happened. And then I'll go Google or go to Reddit and read more about it. So it's like, if I can at least, sometimes my memes are just funny, but sometimes, yeah, I'll sneak in like some like cocktail lore or something like really interesting, which I think is kind of funny because like you're not going to a meme page for that like in-depth knowledge about some cocktail from 20 years ago, but every now and then I'll like, throw something in there and then, somebody will fact check me or somebody will like post something in the comments and start that conversation. And I think it's funny. So I think, yeah, it's like, everybody kind of plays this part in this ecosystem of information. And like, you guys have a really important part because you guys are on the ground, like doing the same thing I'm doing. I'm just dispersing information one way and you're doing it another way, which is a little more academically sound, probably. I think we just have our own way of taking in information. And if we're at least like talking about stuff, that's half the battle and kind of keeping those names alive and bringing up new names and, whatever it may be, or throwing like really sick events, it's just keeping the excitement alive about cocktails. Cause I've fallen victim where I just get burnt out and, in going sober, affected a little bit for a while where I was like not super stoked on events anymore. And just because that was like my job was to throw events. And then, I was like, how do I make this fun again? And how do I make this fun for people coming out? So, it's always, events are never going to die. We're always going to want to do events. So there's just so much about this culture that I love, and it's how do we keep building upon it, I guess, and passing the torch to the younger generation. Cool. We're gonna say Jacksonville / St. Augustine, Florida. So if we're at probably my favorite spot, we're gonna be at Boat Drinks, which is very fitting for your hat, Rich, wearing the captain's hat. I'll paint a quick picture of what Boat Drinks is. It's basically like the post pretentious mixology spot where it's like very authentic and like high quality spirits, but understated cocktails. So you're getting like frozen pina coladas, like really good daiquiris, stuff like that, but like really well made. And then also like insane seafood, like the best oysters. I don't need oysters anywhere else anymore. Great smash burger. And you're getting like the best bartenders in North Florida. And then, yeah, from there, probably move to, man, we're probably going to go to a dive bar that doesn't even have liquor. Probably go to Mugsy's, which is just, I think it's named after Muggsy Bogues, the basketball player. Uh, and you're playing darts and pool and probably drinking a beer, an A beer. Yeah. Best burger in town? Well, I mean, we answered that with Boat Drinks has a great smash burger. And then my boys at Hard Pressed, they're a burger pop up. They're amazing. Yeah, super good. Afternoons a kill. Ooh, probably take you not bar related at all, but I'll take you guys on a like very quick hike to see some alligators. If you follow my personal Instagram, I'm like pretty much posting alligators like every day. I don't know why, just like very Florida thing to do. This is actually so I'm at my house in Gainesville, and there's this prairie called Payne's Prairie. I think it's like around 1,000 acres. But you got like alligators, wild horses. There's bison out there, wild hogs, all sorts of crazy animals. But I'm very like big on reconnecting with nature and the hobbies that I grew up doing. Because I feel like a lot of bartenders get so wrapped up in their job that they like only exist at night. And I think it's really important for us to rekindle our love of our hobbies and passions. And yeah, so one way of doing that for me was just hiking and seeing nature. So I think it's super important. Yes. Yeah. Um, I think they have a Miami Vice. I feel like that's very Florida and yeah. Oh boy. I'm big on the duck confit at Orsay. Very French, very delicious spot. A little bit higher end, but yeah, amazing brunch. That's in Jackson. Beer and a shot. Oh, we're going to Birdies. Good buddy Cody's running that spot in Five Points, Jacksonville. It's been around forever. Cody's doing a great job over there. Yeah, we're hitting Birdies for sure. Obviously, Mover and Shaker Co. It's going to be your meme depot. And then if you want to follow me at Bold City Bourbon, I post a lot of my travels, pop ups across the country, and yeah, my personal behind the scenes stuff. Cheers, guys.
Manning Overboard, Happy Hour with Hotcakes and the Captain is produced and distributed by EatsDrinksTV.
A service of the nonprofit Center for Culinary Culture, home of the cocktail collection,
The Center for Culinary Culture,
telling the story of food and drink, one taste at a time.